ASAT Pramad is the main character of Plain Arcadia. From en route to IC to ASAT Pramad and countless people in between, this Lord Ravager is a very complex and complicated character. He is a man of many names, faces, and even motivations, because en route has different motivations as opposed to IC, and IC isn't the same as ASAT Pramad. But what happens when no matter how many identities you take or lives you live, they all come back to strike you simultaneously, in a cruel and near impossible twist of fate that sounds as if destiny itself has come to laugh at you, much like Joker from Persona 5 on Valentine's Day. But by this joke, I mean it in the most literal sense, because ASAT Pramad has found himself in a situation where multiple manifestations of his past have all come back to take him down. And in this video, I want to use this example of how his story is told to prove that the main character of our Plain Arcadia story isn't us, or even Himiko, but our villain. And we are all side characters to his protagonist. Because this is the star of Plain Arcadia revealed. But first, Hoyo did their thing again where they just release a trailer in the dead of the night while I'm editing, so I'll just talk about this now because it works perfectly with my theory coming up. Okay, so we begin with En route. A masked fool with good in his heart, attempting to bring joy to the world, and attempting to fix the broken and solve the problems of the universe, which apparently led to him creating the Philosopher's Poison virus? And for those of you who don't know what that is, this virus is the virus that stopped Rupert 1. You know, the Genius Society racist robot that nearly wiped out all organic life that no one could stop outside of the big bad scary scalpel lady in a candy colored dress Pokekakamon. She had to stop Rupert 1 herself? Yeah, En route did that. He created the Philosopher's Poison virus that actually stopped him for specific planets. So when I said all those months ago that an elation virus actually stopped him in a limited capacity, that was En route doing that. But anyway, after being dismayed by the Elation's indifference to the suffering in the cosmos, as he stated in his goodbye letter to his friend Braggy, he left to join the Trailblazers and search for the world's end. And by the way, that's just the nature of Elation. Elation didn't necessarily change. Elation is just the other side of nihility. Elation is just nothing matters, I'm just gonna have fun. It is just as indifferent as nihility, just indifferent in a more happy way. But that's besides the point. So En route then leaves to join the Trailblazers in search for the world's end, or as I would like to say, the prime mover of life, renaming himself to IC to symbolize this revelation. I see, I understand now, I'm going to join the Trailblaze. To which Akavili would point him to the stars in response to his questions, an answer that gave IC comfort until he witnessed the fall of the Aeon of the Trailblaze, and this broke him on a mental, spiritual, psychological level, because he realized that not even Akavili knew the answer to his question, and the Trailblaze was a journey to nowhere. So the elation didn't work, and neither did the Trailblaze. But of course, due to the turmoil and witnessing the fall of their Aeon, the Nameless went absolutely berserk, and even started sabotaging the Express, and even resorted to murdering each other. But all of this changed when IC took control. Using his dice ring, he separated the good Nameless from the bad by assigning them cruel and grueling missions. Missions that claim the lives of many, many Nameless. But he did successfully purge the Nameless, which led to him passing down his role of navigator and then him leaving. So in this moment, he realized what actually worked for him in his life: purging. And right on cue, he witnessed the ascension of Nanook, the Aeon of Destruction, whose sole goal in the universe is to purge the cosmos, seeing civilization itself as a crime, or as tainted. This, combined with a bunch of the worlds that IC ended up saving as a Nameless, just went on to corrupt themselves anyway. So yeah, purging is the answer. Thus is the story of ASAT Pramad. And with that pretext and backstory out of the way, onto the theory. Okay, so I touched on this in a previous video, but the more I have thought about this, the more I can't help but think further on just how incredibly specific the powers at play are here. We have the Galaxy Rangers, the Finality Followers, Masked Fools, Nameless, and Void Ranger human hybrids, along with the Preservation Followers, but we'll get into them later. Because at first glance, these factions sound ragtag and random, but in reality, they are very much intentional. Because as we all know, En route was a masked fool, so of course we have the Masked Fools here. Icy was a trailblazer, so we have the Nameless, and then we have the Stellaron Hunters who follow the path of finality, and Icy also has a vague connection to the Omen Vanguards. And finally, ASAT PRAMAD'S a Lord Ravager, and of course we have Graphia and Himiko representing the Antimatter Legion Void Ranger human hybrid things. Or at least human Himiko was. You can also make the argument that Graphia created him a Genesis and she's a destruction being, so if an Imagine is also kind of a destruction, veracity, ink being, that's also the same thing, the argument can be made. But the point is, you would think that this would be it for the connections that these characters all have to ASAT Pramad. But it's not, because veracity is also part of his past. As en route, he had some type of run-in with Ouroboros where he managed to steal their shadow, and then later on gave it to Ashvale. So now, with the remains of Ouroboros and the Torn Scroll and Ashvale here, who literally wields the veracity shadow that Icy gave him, present in this one place, quite literally the story of this guy's life is told through the characters involved in taking him down. Now, with all of that said, the definition of a protagonist goes further than merely meaning main character that we follow around. Because another aspect of being a protagonist is having the experiences and choices of this character put center stage, with the plot revolving around them and their actions. And as I just explained, we know well enough already that every character present here is a manifestation of ASAT Pramad's past choices. Sure, you could say that ASAT Pramad is the antagonist, but I would argue that we are the antagonist to his story. Remember, the villain is always the hero of his own story, and as far as we can see, the characters being involved here all revolve around ASAT Pramad and his life. I'd say that he's more the center than anything else. He is the glue that is holding this story together. So he's more the protagonist and we are his antagonists here. But that isn't enough to just slam the gavel on this case in this court of public opinion. Because another aspect of being a protagonist is character development, going through an arc. And I want to say that if we do have a Lord Ravager who goes through character development throughout the story, it's gonna be ASAT Pramad. Because think about it, this guy wasn't always evil. He was a good person who felt betrayed by the Elation for its indifference to the suffering in the world. So he left to join the faction that quite literally dedicates themselves to traveling to new worlds and saving them. So we know for a fact that ASAT Pramad, when he was Icy, wasn't always a villain, and in fact wanted badly to save people. And I believe that that person still exists today. For two reasons. One, because he clearly has a sense of admiration for a true, genuine Nameless, and two, because of the fact that he can be multiple people at once and in different places at once. So en route in all likelihood could be somewhere out there in the cosmos too, and we have no proof that Icy isn't still with the Omen Vanguards now. And who's to say that ASAT Pramad's ability to split and or duplicate himself doesn't work similarly to Sparkle? I mean, it's an elation ability, isn't it? He can shapeshift just like she can. And Sparkle's duplication is a manifestation of her split personalities and her masks, each being her, but a different side of her. Every Sparkle we see is the real one because the one behind the mask doesn't matter. And how this all shifts over to ASAT Pramad is that his duplications may just symbolize his inability to let go of the past. He, unlike Blade, never has to leave his past behind because he himself never leaves anywhere. He is still en route. He is still IC. He is still ASAT Pramad, and he is still Ryusuke because he can just be these people whenever he feels like it. Meaning that he still has a heart. Meaning that he still has it in him to save the universe. He is striking at Himiko even though he admires her because he wants to leave that part of himself behind. But he can't. He acted as her father for a long time and even got really into his role because he liked it. And he wants to leave the Trailblaze. He killed the Nameless all those years ago, but then he raised one in Graphia, and then he did it again with Himiko. He can't bring himself to leave his past behind. He says himself that he sometimes doesn't even know what's going on inside of his own head because he's just that conflicted.
Even I find it hard to tell what goes on in this head of mine sometimes.
He raised Himiko, but now he wants to kill her because he wants so badly to leave the Trailblaze part of his past behind. He even warned Graphia about it, but it keeps coming back and he can't manage to get rid of it because that is what he is. He can't stop being en route, which is why we see him in the tavern, and he can't stop being icy, which is why he can't quit the Nameless no matter how hard he tries. No matter how hard he tries to kill his own past, it keeps coming back by his own hand. And it is because of this conflicted nature that I believe that it is possible in the future, like the protagonist he is, he will have an arc where he will change. This entire plot is revolving around this one guy.
So, who exactly are you?
I have no clue either.
Which leads me to one wild conclusion. A conclusion that if you saw my collab stream with Ashikai, you might have seen already. That by some elation twist of fate, ASAT PRAMAD'S will lead the Anti-Destruction Alliance. I know it's crazy, but who better than the guy who we know has history with every faction involved with the Anti-Destruction Alliance to lead it? But Nova, he's a Lord Ravager. How could he lead the Anti-Destruction Alliance? En route is trying to kill the Elation. IC is trying to kill the navigator of the Astral Express. How would it be crazy that ASAT PRAMAD'S is trying to kill the Destruction? It's not really that crazy, is it? When you think about it that way, it's really not that crazy. But Nova, again, what about the Preservation? Surely ASAT PRAMAD'S has no connections to the Preservation. Well, according to some Enigmata rumors, the IPC is suspected to be colluding with the Destruction and turning a blind eye to things that they themselves call the cancers of all worlds, the Stellarons. But in addition to that, the next place we know we are going soon in the story is Astropolis, the headquarters of Interastral Peace Entertainment, the very same section of the IPC that just happens to sell merchandise of ASAT PRAMAD'S Dice Head. Yeah, quite literally, all roads lead to ASAT PRAMAD'S. This guy is a straight up protagonist. This is not a joke or an exaggeration. This is just what he is. The story is told through the Trailblazers' point of view, but the main character right now is not us, or Himiko, or Welt, or Silverwolf, or even Blade. It is this guy, because this is the star of Plain Arcadia revealed. Bit of a cracked theory today, but I think it's fun. I personally would love if this happened, and it would be hilarious to go on a journey with a Lord Ravager at the helm of the Anti-Destruction Alliance. That is peak elation. I wrote this theory after spending 3 hours reading viewer theories on stream, and if you want to get in on that action, join the Discord linked in the description today. It was a ton of fun, and I'ma just say that I am far from the only cook in this kitchen. I don't know if y'all learned from me, but I'ma say this right now, that I have the smartest and most creative community in the entire Honkai Star Rail space. This is why I call you guys the Genius Society, and ain't nobody do it like the Elated Geniuses, and you will only get this type of discussion right here. But what do you guys think? Be sure to let me know, and I'll see you all in the next video. Peace, y'all.